on the market for getting you through. John, exactly. First by name. Good evening. It being 5 o'clock, I shall call this meeting of the Council of the Town of Fort Frances to order. Before we begin, let me just comment on what a distinguished gallery we have this evening. I see many former councilors here ready to step in if we should make a mistake. And we have almost the entire library board sitting back there. That's always a pleasure to have the library people here. So thank you all for coming. And of course, Mr. Ogden, always a pleasure. So with that, we'll begin as we always do with the territorial acknowledgement. We respect and truly acknowledge that we are on Treaty 3 territory, the traditional land of the Anishinaabe and the Métis Nation. We give gratitude and honor to the ancestors, elders, and all Anishinaabe and Métis people for sharing their resources and knowledge. Councillors, any disclosure of pecuniary interest? If so, state the general nature. Seeing none. Moving on to number 4, delegations and deputations. And first up, we have Mr. Terry Ogden. Welcome, Terry.
Test the mic here. I don't know how close I have to be. You hear me there? Thanks. Your Worship, Mayor Halikas, and members of council, I am Terry Ogden. That's the rule of state. We must tell who we are. I come before you today as an advocate to have you review your decision to sell Sunny Cove Camp. Before I get to Sunny Cove Camp, however, I'd like to thank you for allowing me to speak here tonight. I'd like to let you know I have a tremendous respect for anybody who vies to be on council and those who serve on council. Thank you for doing what you do. As an advocate for Sunny Cove Camp, I feel when we accept it, it's a gift from the Kiwanis Club in 2009. It became our duty to keep it and run it efficiently. I know it was a priority for Mayor Avis as he had a strong attachment to Sunny Cove. It operated at a minimal cost and was well used until the pandemic, and then everything seemed to fall apart. No camp, cabin, or house can be neglected for 6 years and not need a lot of TLC. I feel that's where we are. The camp needs some TLC, and we are proposing to sell it. Somehow I feel it's our duty to the Kiwanis past and present and the community to give it our best shot to revive it. The threat of losing something can be good. Juices to make it go. It would be nice to make it better than it ever was. Awake our community pride. Carry on the traditions of the Kiwanis that they laid a groundwork for. It's time for a younger generation to carry the load and get involved. Options I would recommend rather than selling. Option one. For capital improvement, total of $495,000. 3, use the insurance settlement to repair the beach. 4, create a Sunny Cove board, such as the library board or the Fort Frances Senior Center board. And 5, have a time frame of 10 years in which to review the value of running Sunny Cove. Option 2, a secondary choice for myself, would be to lease Sunny Cove to a group or party that could operate it within the values of the former owner, the Kiwanis Club. A little bit of history. Late 1940s, a timber baron wanted to replace our old arena on Nelson Street. It was built in 1920. Then it became our curling rink. Our town fathers at the time wanted to honor the war vets. Thus, we built the Memorial Arena in 1952, and J.A. Matthew paid for the gym at Fort Frances High School on First Street instead of building the arena. That was named after J.A. Matthew, the auditorium. Today, companies are sponsoring athletic buildings in major centers like the Canada Life Centre in Winnipeg, the Grand Casino Arena in Minneapolis, the Scotiabank Arena in Toronto. But they're also starting to support small towns like the arena in Kenora, the Moncrief Construction Arena in Kenora. It seems to be a business trend. Maybe, just maybe, wouldn't it be nice if a biofuel company or a solar company were interested in Sunny Cove? Another thought brought up by my daughter-in-law the other day is to have building sponsors, a different sponsor for each of the 9 buildings at Sunny Cove, like they sponsor billboards at the arena. Sunny Cove would also be, I feel, a great project for a new council in 2026. Look, we all know the needs of safety, protection, sewer, water, roads must take priority. And we don't want Sunny Cove to be an albatross to the budget. From my sources, it cost around $11,000 to mothball Sunny Cove last year. In 2015, it cost the same amount to run it. I don't think it's an albatross. I would hope we can get to running it at a minimal cost as we did prior to the pandemic for 10+ years. If we can't, I would hope we would try to lease it to another party. Selling it would be a last resort. It just seems like a final step. I'll leave you with this. We can build roads, sewer, and water systems, and buildings, and repair things forever. But we can never build the land we call Sunny Cove. It's the best available property on Rainy Lake. Its real value is not in the buildings, it's in the land. And it can be brought back to its former glory, bit by bit. Sunny Cove is not only for today, it's for the future and forever. I ask you, Your Worship, Mayor Halikas and Council, to please reconsider your vote. Thanks for your time.
Terry, thank you very much for a very passionate and well-written presentation. I'll just ask the councilors if they have any questions or comments they'd like to make. Councilors? Councilor Morrison?
Through the chair, and thank you very much, Terry. How does it work for a motion to reconsider, just so they can, everybody, I guess most people here probably know, but just so Terry can hear it out, what would have to change to have a motion to reconsider?
There is a notice of motion on tonight's agenda to reconsider at the next meeting. It's a high bar. You have to have it moved by a person who was in the majority. That's going to be done. But then you require 2/3 vote, which is 5 out of 7 votes to reconsider. Further questions or comments, councilors? I would have a comment. Jerry, I just want to, I think, congratulate you or thank you. This is what citizen advocacy looks like when it's done well. Terry was passionate about a project, but rather than just beef about it on social media or talk about it in a coffee shop, he sat down and wrote a really articulate letter to the local newspaper. And by the way, Terry, thank you for that letter. It was a wonderful letter. But then he contacted people. He talked to people. He talked to all of the councilors. He did his homework. He got his facts straight. And then he put it into a very, very passionate presentation. So I thank you for that. And for anyone who's listening, I hope more people would do things like this. If you want to interact with your council, use Terry Ogden as your example. Terry, you are welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, but as you know, we won't be taking any further action this evening, so you won't hurt our feelings if you leave.
Thank you.
And with that, we'll go to presentations under 5.1. We have our esteemed library board here, and we have our amazing new library CEO about to present to us. Nadine, take it away.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to everyone for your time today. My name is Nadine Cousineau. I'm here from the Fort Frances Public Library to present our estimated 2026 operating budget. So we can start the slide.
You might need to be a bit closer to the mic,
Oh, sure, okay.
just for the people online.
I'll talk louder. Okay. Okay, before we begin, I would just like to draw your attention to this new logo that we have. Well, not new, sorry. This logo we have next to our Fort Frances Public Library Technology Center logo. We were recently reaccredited to the Ontario Public Library Guidelines, and we're just really proud of having that badge of honor on there. Next slide, Ali, we'll start the presentation. So this is just a brief outline of what I'll talk about today. I'll start with a general overview of the 2026 operating budget and what we're asking for, followed by any changes we'll see in revenue and expenses from last year in 2025. And then just a few important notes I'd like to bring to your attention when considering this year's operating budget for the library. Next slide, please. Thank you. So you will see here just a quick overview of the estimated 2026 operating budget. Across the board, we are seeing increases and decreases. At the very top, looking at revenues, you'll notice an increase in operational revenue and a decrease in HST excluded operational revenue. I will go over the details about that in one moment. But overall, the difference in estimated revenue from 2025 to 2026 is only a very small decrease of $201. Under expenses, again, we're seeing a mix of increases and decreases. And again, I'll go into more detail about that. But overall, the library is asking for a total of $606,931 for the 2026 operating budget, which is a 1% decrease from last year. Next slide, please. Okay, so when we're talking about this year's operating budget, I would like to start by saying that this is largely a status quo budget. However, we are expecting to see some changes worth mentioning in both revenue and expense lines. I could go on and talk about the library all day, but for the purpose of this presentation, we have limited time. I'm just going to talk about the biggest changes we'll see. So our photocopier and our Shaw Community Hub are two of our largest revenue generators that include HST, and we're expecting to see an increase in both lines for 2026, and that's based on actual revenue from 2025. We also have a plan in place to increase marketing and advertising of these two services, and I feel very confident with extra effort, we will easily surpass those numbers. We are expecting to see a decrease of 56.4% or $3,176 in federal student grants this year. I have submitted an application for the Canada Summer Job Grant, which would fund an 8-week summer student position. However, in 2025, the library received funding for only 50% of minimum wage for that same position, and the expectation is the same for 2026. So that accounts for that $3,176 decrease on that line. Where am I here? Sorry. So going on, we are expecting a 44.6% or a $1,310 increase for Ontario Library Services in 2026. This is because our library was selected to receive funding through the Connecting Libraries initiative. And what that is, it's a program through OLS, which is intended to upgrade internet services in unserved and underserved communities. This will reimburse our connectivity costs for a 12-month period, and we'll also have a less expensive monthly public internet bill going forward. So we'll save some money there as well. And next slide, please. Thank you. And then going on to discuss expenses in 2026. So we are expecting a 4.4% or $13,640 decrease in full-time salaries, along with a 19.4% or $11,506 decrease in hourly part-time wages. So when you factor in all the expenses that go, employer expenses associated with these budget lines, like your WSIB, OMERS, CPP benefits, overall, we're going to see a 4.7 decrease for salaries, wages, and benefits, which amounts to $22,386. Salaries, wages, and benefits is the biggest piece of the puzzle for our budget. And for that reason, this decrease does have the biggest impact on our budget. The decrease in full-time and part-time wages is due to a pretty substantial turnover in staffing in 2025. We had a lot of staff movement and new staff starting at lower steps on the pay bands. We've also had a minor restructure of a part-time position, as well as a few changes to staff scheduling, and these things combined have all made these budget lines a bit more efficient. And carrying on, repairs and maintenance has increased by 66.7% or $4,000. This is because we have a list of maintenance issues still outstanding from 2025. So this line has just been increased to ensure these projects are completed, as well as any other issues that might come up in 2026. The library's portion of the town of Fort Frances insurance expense will be increasing 41.4%, which is an additional $4,575. And finally, hardware and software maintenance expenses are expected to increase by 33% or $5,950. And this is due to very high inflation rates on software. As well, we had a transition of our firewall support coming from the capital budget, which is now included in the operating budget. Yeah, so next slide, please. And then finally, just a couple of notes to consider when we're talking about the library's operating budget. Non-resident membership fees have increased by 1.9%, which aligns with the town of Fort Frances user fee increase. We are in our final year of a current 3-year service agreement with the Township of Alberton, and we will be negotiating a new agreement with Alberton this year. We're also in a final year of our current janitorial contract, and again, this contract will be tendered this year as well. And finally, all library service expense lines, which includes programming, books, DVDs, etc., have all remained the same. So what this means for the staff is we'll work with the same amount of money regardless of inflation, and still hope to deliver the same level of services to the Fort Frances community. Yeah, so that concludes my presentation. But while I'm up here, I would just like to take a moment to say thank you to all the senior management, all the senior managers in the town of Fort Frances. This was my first budget, and I asked a lot of questions. Travis is laughing. So I just really did want to say thank you, and I really appreciate the support and the help with that.
Thank you very, very much, Nadine. And councilors, do you have any questions or comments for Nadine? Councilor Bernetta.
I just want to congratulate you on getting your first budget done, especially in light of the fact that it's decreasing. I think in my 12 years, I've never seen a decrease in a budget. So congratulations. And I just had one question about the federal student grant. Just clarification, really. So you're saying the grant is expected to be lower, or that line is?
Yeah, so everything in that line is the Canada Summer Jobs Grant. And last year it was budgeted for to fund the whole position, but only 50% of funding was received. And just based on the information I've been given, that's the same expectation for 2026.
So rather than budgeting 100%, you're just budgeting for 50%.
I budgeted for the full 8 weeks worth of wages, but only budgeted to receive 50% of funding. So our budget would cover the remaining 50% of the
Okay.
wages. Yeah.
Thanks.
Councillor Firth?
Through your worship. Is there any inclination if the Township of Alberton will be extending?
I have no reason to believe they won't. We're actually working on other projects going forward together that make sense, that
Follow up?
our agreement would continue.
And just actually, just one last question. Have you looked into discussing with Shunya about their employment grants?
I have actually been in touch with Shunya, and going forward, I do plan to pursue many more grant opportunities. However, just the timing of me entering this position this year, there was a lot. So next year, I plan to seek out many more grant opportunities for sure.
Further questions or comments? I have a few comments. First of all, I want to thank you for an amazing presentation. As Councillor Burnett has said, it's pretty rare to get a group coming in where the budget decreased. So we're pretty pumped about that. The other thing that I'd like to say, and you touched it lightly at the beginning of your presentation when you drew our attention to the new logo, our library is accredited again. We were accredited 6 years ago. It was a very tough task to get accredited. Then we had some difficulty with a couple of library CEOs and things got kind of left. And our new amazing CEO came in, and on top of reducing the budget and getting everything tied up and really repairing working relations with staff, she also took on accreditation and got us accredited. So we are now accredited for another 6 years. And that's a big deal. Do you want to say a little bit about accreditation? I don't mean to put you on the spot.
Yeah, it was a huge undertaking on a short timeline. That's what I will say. I'm going to Toronto at the end of January to the OLA Super Conference. And we will receive our award officially there, and I will bring it home to the library. Yeah.
Well done. And I'll just make two final comments. One is I've been speaking on and off with Nadine on a number of occasions since she took the helm. Nadine has bailed us out in the past where we've had our library CEOs leave various reasons, and she has always stepped up and stepped in and ran the library impeccably for us. So now she's here in a permanent position, and we're seeing great things as we expected great things from you. And I do want to mention one of the things, you saw the effect tonight when I talked to Nadine. She's telling me of all of the wonderful ideas she has for making the library more efficient, and you can see that it's already happening. And the final thing I want to say is we actually have the entire library board here tonight. So I do want to thank the library board for the stellar job that you do with one of our community jewels. So thank you very, very much for the work that you do. And as I mentioned with the previous group, you're all welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, but we won't be hurt if you leave.
Very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, everyone.
And with that, we'll move on to correspondence. 6.1 is some correspondence from OMERS. I put this on there. This is something that AMO is really advising us to do. The provincial government is passing legislation in Bill 68 that allows it to dissolve the OMERS Sponsor Corporation and replace it with something else. And what they're replacing it with lacks corporate status, lacks independence, and lacks financial protection. So I would really like to be authorized by council to send the letter that was included in your package to the government in support of OMERS on this. We are a corporation that does contribute to OMERS, so it affects us directly. So with that, I'd like to put an oral motion on the floor that council authorizes the mayor to send the enclosed letter to the government of Ontario. Could I get a mover and seconder for that, please? Councillor Morrison, Councillor Mackey, any discussion on that? Calling the question, all in favor? That's carried and no one was opposed. Thank you very, very much, councillors. 6.2 is the DSAB, or as they're now referred to, the District of Rainy River Services Board agenda package. So you can have a look at that. If anybody has any questions, I was at that meeting. You're welcome to contact me outside of this meeting for an explanation or further information. And then 6.3 brings us to a water and sewer billing issue put in by another concerned citizen, Mr. Pollard. And before we deal with that, I think the treasurer was going to comment on it.
Thank you, through the chair. At this time, our accounts are set up on a bi-monthly billing schedule, and we're unable to change just individual accounts to monthly billing. A change of all bills to a monthly billing system or schedule would mean system reconfiguration costs to change that setup. There would also be additional time for one staff member to process bills, plus the reading of meters. So I've calculated approximately a 0.3 FTE for 1 year. Finally, the cost of postage is about $2,700 per billing, in addition to the paper and the envelope costs. So I personally don't feel that it's fiscally responsible for the town to make that change. That said, customers are always welcome to make payments anytime between billing cycles through online bill payments or in the office. Many customers choose to make monthly or even bi-weekly payments to better align with their budgeting needs and their cash flows. Knowing the cost of the bills for each year, which we're talking about later tonight, allows customers to fit these costs into their household budgets.
Thank you, Madam Treasurer. Councillors, any questions or comments on this? Yes, go ahead, Councillor Morrison.
To your worship, thank you very much for the good explanation. I think I've inquired about this before, and I think maybe we could do some messaging about it to people, just because I know it's going to cost more money, but I have heard it from a lot of young families or young, even single people that are trying to buy houses. And when I did the math last night, by 2032, we'll be up to $275 every 2 months for the billing. And so my wife said too, she said, wow, she goes, how do these young people afford it? But I think they have to learn, or our messaging, maybe like our Madam Treasurer said, maybe pay bi-weekly or monthly, and we can get that message out to them to try to help people out that way. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Morrison. Councillor Mackey?
Thank you, Your Worship. To the Treasurer, has it been explored going even quarterly, every 3 months or so? I wasn't aware it cost so much just for stamps and everything, just to put that bill out every 2 months. If we were to stretch it to 3, and in light of Councillor Morrison's thoughts of public relations, getting it out there and they make monthly payments, could we not explore something like that for cost savings?
Madam Treasurer?
Through the chair, I guess we always could. The software cost, would still be one of the things. And then I feel like we'd be going the opposite way of what this one resident anyways has complained of. It is always an option. We also are trying to encourage people to set up e-billing, which costs us minimally through our system. It does cost, but it's minimal versus sending through the mail. But that is difficult, I'll say. We still have a lot that we actually physically mail.
So just picking up on what Councillor Mackey said, if we were to put out some kind of announcement about the billing, we could mention in there that e-billing is an encouraged option, and maybe try to get more people to do that. That's reasonable. Other questions, councilors? Yeah, Councilor Morrison. Well, just a minute. Any other councilor who hasn't had a question yet? Okay, back to you, Councilor Morrison.
To your worship, thank you. I was just thinking maybe we could have some, through our deputy clerk, maybe we can have some sort of contest, promote online billing, if it'll save us money in all our, like in all our billing. Probably help, for the Fort Francis Power Corporation as well. I know I don't get online billing yet, and but maybe some sort of incentive to get people to change, like maybe a gift cards around town in a draw.
Yeah, I can speak of the Fort Francis Power Corporation billing. They have had an active campaign to encourage more people to do e-billing, and they have ran contests where they've had some fairly substantial prizes to get people to do it, and they've got a decent response from that. Any other questions or comments, councilors? Councilor Bernetta.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just further to what Councillor Morrison suggested, I think when the postal strike was an issue, a lot of people, I think, did convert to e-billing. So perhaps we'll see some return on that in the future. But I like the idea of some sort of contest. My initial response to the letter was to ask also, can we do it monthly? But I appreciate the explanation that our treasurer has provided. So I think that we'll probably discuss it a bit more in our next agenda or in one of the future agenda items here tonight. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Bernetta. Other questions or comments? So just to deal with the actual letter in front of us, Madam Treasurer, Mr. Pollard then could contact you if he so wished and be billed monthly.
No, I'm sorry, he could not be billed monthly, but he could pay monthly.
My apologies. He could pay monthly if he so choose.
Yeah, he could contact the utility clerk.
Okay. So, councilors, what I'm hearing you say is we would like to put out some sort of media release to subscribers, letting them know about this policy and also encouraging to take part in e-billing and perhaps with a contest, encourage people to do the same. Is there any other action you'd like to take, councilors, or is that fine? Okay. So we've got that, and the clerks shall make it so. They so competently do. Okay, so that brings us to item number 7, council reports. My report is a whopper, so clearly I'm not going to read everything, but I will hit a few items off of there. I want to talk a little bit about our staff Christmas event simply because so many people on our staff put in a lot of work to create a really nice event for the staff. So a huge shout out to the Town Party Planning Committee with heartfelt thanks going to Allie, Chelsea, Lori, Missy, Craig, and Elaine. And again, a shout out to the Legion. They always come through. The food was spectacular that evening. The Legion ladies outdid themselves. And a special thanks goes to our MC, Allie, who, in spite of some reluctance from some folks, initially kept things moving smoothly. So thank you for that party planning committee. I do want to mention, and I've mentioned this in the past, I meet with local chiefs as often as I can. In particular, I meet with Chief Breer a great deal because they're our closest neighbor, and we have coffee and talk about various issues that affect both of us. I also have contacted 2 new chiefs that were just voted in. Chief Leonard of Rainy River First Nation was just voted in. I have called him, and we're going to go for coffee tomorrow and again talk about some issues. For those of you who were at the Rainy River District Municipal Association, he was the last speaker and did a stellar presentation on the effect of drugs on people on his reserve and what he thought should be done in communities as a whole. And I want to talk to him about that and follow up with that. And then out at Northwest Bay, we have a new chief there, Chief Counselor, who I have also called, and we're going to be getting together at the end of the month to discuss things of mutual interest and what we can work on together. here's something that's going to affect council. Nothing's come before us yet, but it's going to come before us. The District of Rainy River Services Board is participating in the Northern Ontario Service Deliverers, that's NOSDA, that's the organization that they belong to, multi-site strategy to advance new affordable and mixed income housing across province, well, across Northern Ontario, across the northern part of the province. Now, what that means for us is that they're partnering with a company called Ellis Don, and Ellis Don has already been in town and has looked at potential properties. They've looked at the old 6th Street School property that the DSAB currently owns. They've also looked at the Shevlin Woodyard and other properties around town to determine if they might be suitable for this initiative, and they are. And so the next step is that the DSAB is going to be looking for funding. So they've had some conversations with the Town of Fort Frances CAO and myself. They've asked for a letter of support in principle of this project so that they can begin the funding process, but they're going to need a concrete resolution from our council. So they will be either presenting to you or sending a letter to our council with particulars on this. And there's some information on this in their minutes and further in my report if you'd like to read more about that, or you can talk to me about it. But I'm kind of excited about this initiative. It looks like finally we're going to have a serious attempt to create a variety of housing in Fort Frances. The next shout out I want to shout out to is Diane Maxey and her Choraleers. They do this every year. They put on an amazing Christmas concert, which is always free for any members of the community. And as always, it was a really good concert that got people feeling really good before Christmas. Another comment, the Fort Frances Times, I see the editor sitting right there, asked me before Christmas if I'd do a retrospective. I thought, yeah, I'd be happy to do a retrospective. I've done them in the past, and it doesn't take a lot of time. Well, that was wrong. I asked the managers if they could send me some information on what was happening in their departments in addition to what I knew. And once I started correlating it, writing it, it ran to many, many pages. And I didn't expect it to take up a full page in the Times. But it's amazing how much council does in 1 year. And often people in the community are looking to council to do really, really big things. But really the purpose of a council, and as I mentioned in that perspective that I wrote, is to provide services to the community on a consistent basis and make sure that people live in a welcoming, safe community. And this council does that. And it took me pages and pages and pages just to go over the stuff that I had, and I left things out because it was just getting really, really long. I really didn't expect you to print all of that, but thanks for doing that. Just recently, we had a flag raising, and I should point out to everyone, the community in particular, that January is Alzheimer's Month, and we have several members of our community who suffer from dementia, and in particular Alzheimer's. So we raised the Alzheimer's flag, and there was a good contingent of community members who came out. Thanks to Councillor Bean and McTaggart also for coming out and showing the flag. That was a really good event. And then finally, I want to talk a little bit about the water tower. Again, just like the library getting their certification, this water tower, bringing it back online, was a really, really big deal. So I want to thank our water treatment staff, water treatment operator Colin Angus, operator in charge Brian Pattison, and overall operator Greg Wiedenhoff. Most people in the community aren't aware of this, but while the water tower was offline for the entire summer, our residents never once were denied access to water. And that's no mean feat, because without the gravity feed of that water tower, we rely on pumps to get the water to our residents. And so that meant that our water treatment staff were looking after those pumps, were nursemaiding those pumps 24/7 over the entire summer. And the fact that never once did we have a denial of water service. When you turned on the tap, the water came out. That's pretty darn amazing. And I also want to thank Craig Miller, who oversaw the project as our project manager. His organization skills, his attention to detail, and his steady oversight kept everything moving. Again, this was another good story, much like the library budget. That water tower, was a big project. It was a complex project. It came in on time-ish and on budget. And it was just a smooth operation all around. So just heartfelt thanks to everybody who did that. Again, this is one of the, I call these folks the unsung heroes because people don't know what they did. But that's what we're here for, is to make sure that those services, these essential services, are provided 24/7, and our residents never know that there was a problem, that major infrastructure was taken offline. And then finally, of course, I want to shout out to Travis Schwab, our operations and facilities manager. Travis, as always, with his calm, quiet competence, oversaw the project on behalf of council in the town of Fort Francis. And with that, then, I'll move on. I believe, Councillor Firth, you have a report.
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't have a very long one, just Happy New Year to everyone. And I just wanted to touch base that our community came in very, very gracious before Christmas. And they're still counting a few last checks, but I believe there was over $35,000.
Wow.
That was donated to our local food bank for food hampers for our community. So, Jimmy Miigwech, thank you so much. Merci beaucoup.
And Councillor Mackey?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm going to speak to the Senior Center. So before Christmas, Friday, the 19th was the last day they closed down for the Christmas holidays. On Monday, the 22nd, because I had volunteered to cook the appreciation dinner for all the volunteers that run that magnificent facility, with the help of my bride and Councillor McTaggart and his bride and Muff Allen, I think we put on an excellent spread and went over with rave reviews. And it reopened now on January 5th, just last Monday. So thank you to Cindy Noble and all of the volunteers and their spouses for all the work they do in relation to that senior center. And the next advisory meeting for it will be on February 18th, 10 a.m.
Thank you, councillors. With that, we'll move on to the consent agenda. We've got 6 items this evening, starting at 8.2. These are the council meeting minutes. We have a recommendation that says the council approve the following council meeting minutes as presented. The regular council meeting minutes of December 8, 2025, the special council meeting dealing with the capital budget minutes of December 8, 2025, and a special council meeting dealing with the capital budget minutes of December 16, 2025. 8.3 are boards and committee meeting minutes, and the recommendation reads that the following boards and committee meeting minutes be received as information. First one is the Rainy River District West OPP Detachment Board of October 20th, 2025. The Ad Hoc Dog Park Advisory Committee, the meeting was November 12th, 2025. And the Fort Francis Nonprofit Housing Corporation, September 17th, 2025. 8.4 deals with the Fort Francis Integrity Commissioner's report, his annual report, and the recommendation reads, the council accept report AR-26-0986 titled Fort Francis Integrity Commissioner 2025 Annual Report, bracket open as information. 8.5 deals with alternate voting for elections, and the recommendation reads that council approve and authorize the use of alternate voting methods for future elections of the town of Fort Francis, and that a bylaw formally authorizing the practice be brought forward at the next meeting of council. 8.6 deals with the rescinding of certain policies, and the recommendation reads that the following policies be rescinded as corporate policies. There's quite a few of them. We have the boards and commissions, ADM, Administration and Finance 1.4, the color code for municipal buildings, again, that's Administration and Finance 1.2, the Fort Francis Cooperative Purchasing Group, Administration and Finance 1.3, high school participation on council-appointed commission, boards and committees, Administration and Finance 1.6, the opening of council mail, this is Administration and Finance 1.5, the sale of surplus land, Administration and Finance 1.7, and finally the Townsend Theater operations, this is Community Services 2.3. And then our last one is 8.7. This is the transition of the Blue Box Recycle Collection, and the recommendation reads that council receive report AR-26-0991 titled Update on the Transition of Blue Box Recycle Collection as Information. Councilors, would you like to pull any of those? Councilor Bernetta.
8.5, please.
8 point, which?
8.5.
8.5. Anything else, councilors? Okay, Councilor Bernetta, 8.5.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a question for the clerk's department. I do recall that we used the telephone and internet in our previous election, but I also thought that we had set up in council chambers computers so that if people wanted to come in and vote in person, there would be someone here to assist them to do that. So is that, again, the plan?
Madam Clerk?
Through the chair, yes, that is the plan. We will be setting those up for people.
Anything further? Okay, with that, I have a resolution. Recommendation reads that council approve the consent agenda as follows. Agenda items 8.2, 8.3, 8.4, 8.6, and 8.7. Could I get a mover and seconder, please? Councilor Firth and Councilor Mackey. Calling the question, all in favor? That's carried. No one was opposed. And then we have the resolution for 8.5. The recommendation reads that council approve and authorize the use of alternate voting methods for future elections of the town of Fort Francis, and that a bylaw formally authorizing the practice be brought forward at the next meeting of council. Could I get a mover and seconder on that, please? Councilor Bernetta, Councilor Firth. Any further discussion on that one? All in favor? That's carried. No one opposed. Okay, moving to item 9. This is Administration and Finance Division reports. I'll put a resolution on the floor. Recommendation reads that council receive report AR-25-0983 outlining the Moffat Family Fund allocation of $102,500, and the council agreed to retain $1,500 for administrative costs of the allowed $3,075, leaving $101,000 for the community. And that for the 2026 selection, the following 2 members of council will be appointed to serve on the Moffat ad hoc committee. Last year, I believe we had Councilor Mackey and Councilor McTaggart. Are you willing to serve again? Are you willing to reply for Councilor McTaggart? Well, I don't think he was going to participate. I know Councilor McTaggart's observing online, but he had a medical procedure today. And by the way, Councilor McTaggart, we wish you well, and we hope that you're feeling all right. Did you want to speak, Councilor McTaggart? Okay. We're putting you on the Moffat Family Fund as we have in previous years. Can I get a mover and seconder on this, please? Councilor Firth, Councilor Bernetta. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? It's carried. Congratulations, Councilor McTaggart and Councilor Mackey. That's carried with no one opposed. Moving to agenda item number 10, Community Service Division reports, there are none. Item 11, Planning and Development Division reports, there are none. Item 12 is Operation and Facilities Division reports, and 12.1, we have the adoption of the 2026 Water and Sewer Financial Plan. So I'll put a resolution on the floor which reads, the council approval of report AR-26-0990 will agree with the recommendation of administration to adopt the financial plan as prepared by BMA Management Consulting Incorporated, and that a separate resolution be prepared, and that a copy of the long-range financial plan for both the water and wastewater systems be made available to the public on the town's website in print at the Town of Fort Francis Civic Center and forwarded to the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing. Can I get a mover and seconder for this to put it on the floor? Councillor Behan, Councillor Morrison. And councillors, questions, comments? Councillor Brunetta and then Councillor Behan.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm just going to comment on my thoughts on the different options that are presented.
That's coming up
Oh,
later.
am I on the wrong one? Sorry.
That's the water rates.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Councillor Behan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. Again, I'm glad for this report because it certainly tells us what our future needs are and how we can start planning now and explain to the public why their rates are what they are and what we're looking for down the road. My question maybe right now on page 17 and 18, I believe it is, it talks about the water capital budget and financing, and then the next one is the wastewater capital budget and financing. I see for the water one, it shows provincial grants for 2026, and then nothing else after that. And for the wastewater, it shows provincial grants for 2026 and 2027 and nothing after that. I'm curious that maybe it's not listed because we don't know what those grants will be in the future, but yet it seems to indicate we're not going to get any provincial grants. And I'm just curious why it's sort of written that way. And am I correct in that?
Manager Rob.
Thank you through the chair. Excellent question, Councillor Behan. So we only counted in this financial plan grants that we have for projects we know are coming and the quantities that we know that we're getting for funding. Unfortunately, in the world of sewer and water, grants are few and far between. So it's hard for us on any project in any area to count on grants beyond what we already know we have. In sewer water, it's even more difficult because the grant funding is just not out there for those particular asset types. So we captured what we knew we had, what we knew we have confirmation of for funding for the company, excuse me, coming couple of years, coming couple of projects. And then beyond that, we have to make the assumption that we aren't going to have any other funding to support the projects.
Follow up, are you good? I'll just make a comment on Manager Rob's comments. Manager Rob is correct, and we're not the only municipality in this situation. Many or all, I would say, municipalities in Ontario are suffering from aging infrastructure, which is very, very expensive to maintain and to refurbish. To that end, the Ministry of Finance is holding budget consultations across the province. I'm going to a budget consultation next week. And this happens to be exactly one of the three items I'm going to speak to at the budget consultation, the need for additional grants and steady, reliable funding for these infrastructure problems, and in particular, sewer and water. Any further questions or comments on this one? Yes, Councillor Morrison.
Through your worship, just a quick comment. It was nice to see that we were 23% lower than the rest of the province on our cost of sewer and water. Water 17% below and wastewater 28%, with an average of both for 23%. So I thought that was, the ratepayers should know that, and it's good statistic to have. So thank you.
Thank you for that. Further comments? Councillor Behan.
Again, thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. The only other comment I'll make is that I've seen recent media reports where the increase in Dryden, I think, was over 6%. The increase in Kenora for sewer and water for 2026 is over 8%. We're looking right now, according to this report, at perhaps 3.9 for 2026. I think the best thing I can say is that we've been planning for this for quite a long time. We've been setting it in motion, dating back several years. And so I think it's a kudos to the administration and planning that we have been tackling this problem of aging infrastructure already. And that's why it's not so much of a huge rate shock right away. There's obviously increases down the road, steady ones over the years. But I think just the fact that we're looking at maybe 3.9 for 2026 is a testament to what the job we've been doing already to tackle this problem of aging infrastructure and how we pay for it. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Behan. Further questions before I call the question? Calling the question, all in favor? It's carried. No one was opposed. Okay, moving to 12.2, which is the award of a tender for delivery of granular materials. I'll put a resolution on the floor. The council approved report number AR-25-0982 to award individual components of tender 2025-OF-16, and that the 2026 and 2027 supply and delivery of granular A, granular B type 1, granular B type 2, class 2 surface treatment aggregate, screened winter sand, crusher screenings, rock for shoreline protection, that's riprap, R50, cobblestone and grinding of recycled asphalt shall be awarded to Tom Viert Contracting Limited, and that the 2026 and 2027 supply and delivery of 19 millimeter clear stone type 1 be awarded to George Armstrong Company Limited. Can I get a mover and seconder to get this on the floor, please? Councillor Bernetta, Councillor Morrison. Discussion or questions, councillors? Councillor Behan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I hate splitting hairs, and I just want to make sure, maybe I'm reading it wrong. But when you do the comparison at the end between the price for 2025 and 2026 and 2026 and 2027, for the 19 millimeter clear stone type 1, we've listed the 26 unit price as $39, but that was the Tom Viert quote. It was only $36. And for 2027, the quote was $41, but I believe it was less than that. It was $37.80. So those numbers were a bit wrong. It's not going to make a hill of beans difference. It's just showing the comparison from year to year. But that percentage would be off because there's actually a decrease of 75 cents in 2026, and then an increase of $1.80 or something like that. I'm just pointing that out.
Thank you. Further questions or comments? Seeing none, calling the question. All in favor? It's carried, and no one was opposed. Okay, that brings us to 12.3, which is the setting of the 2026 water rates. I'll put a recommendation on the floor that council approval of report AR-25-0964 will agree with the recommendation of administration to approve scenario 1 on spreadsheet 1 as the established water and sewer rates for the 2026 year as further outlined in this report. Can I get a mover and seconder for this one, please? Councillor Firth and Councillor Morrison. I'm going to go right to Councillor Bernetta.
I had to get my place in line here. Okay, so even though the report suggests that we go with option 1, which is 3.9%, if we look at the analysis, we can see that scenario 1 actually results in a deficit at the end. So I wouldn't suggest that we're going with any projected deficits at this point. So scenario 1 and scenario 3 both project deficits. So those two were automatically off my list. Option 4 does show a slight surplus. Basically, it's break even, $17.54. But I did think that option 4 really placed an unfair burden on the ICI and fire hydrant ratepayers. So I would prefer looking at either option 2 or option 5. Both of those options result in surplus situations. And option 2 is just a 4.54% increase, which is $4.35 per month for our residential ratepayers. And option 5 is a 5% increase, which is only $4.80 per month increase. So I'd be fine with either options 2 or 5. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bernetta. Other comments or questions, councillors? Okay, we need to pick an option, so I'm just going to pull councils. I've already got Councillor Bernetta's. So, Councillor Firth, do you have an option in mind? Are you good with 1?
I'll go with option 2.
Option 2. Councillor Behan?
I believe I'm in favor of option 2 as well.
Okay. Councillor Morrison?
Option 5.
Councillor Mackey? Going to be We have the majority of councilors picking option number 2. So the recommendation then is going to be changed, and because I'm going to amend it to read that council approval of this report will agree with the recommendation to approve option 2 on the spreadsheet number 1, I'll need a mover and seconder for that. Councilor Bernetta and Councilor Firth. So on the amendment changing 1 to 2, all in favor? One was opposed. That's good. So the main motion then is that council approval of report AR-25-0964 will agree with the recommendation of administration to approve scenario 2 on spreadsheet number 1 as the established water and sewer rates for the 2026 years. That's already been moved and seconded. So I'll call the question unless you have questions or comments. Questions or comments? Calling the question. All in favor? That's carried, and no one was opposed. Thank you for that, councilors, and thank you to Manager Rob and his team and the CAO for getting that wealth of calculations and information before us. I realize how much work goes into that. Okay, that brings us to bylaws. Agenda item number 13. We have 3 of them tonight. I'll put a recommendation on the floor that the following bylaws be introduced and read, finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, and sealed with a corporate seal and become law forthwith. Bylaw 01-26, which is a temporary borrowing bylaw. Bylaw 02-26, this is an interim tax levy bylaw. And bylaw 03-26, this is the volunteer and citizen recognition policy. Can I get a mover and seconder, please? Councilor Morrison, Councilor Bernetta. Any discussion, councilors? Calling the question, all in favor? That's carried, no one was opposed. Okay, that brings us to item number 14. We had a notice of motion last week put forward by Councilor Behan. The motion, the resolution is in front of you. Councilor Behan, if you like, we could deem this read unless you feel like reading the entire thing. Is council okay if I deem this as read? And just one comment, a similar motion was presented at the Rainy River District Municipal Association AGM, and it passed. So I'm assuming that you're moving this, Councilor Behan? So moved by Councilor Behan. Can I get a seconder for that? Councilor Mackey. Any discussion? Councilor Bernetta.
I want to thank Councillor Behan for putting this motion forward. It is a very important part of our community, and the timing was not great for our main passenger carrier to withdraw. So there is also a movement at the provincial level, I believe AMO's involved, to look at starting up funding, provincial funding or federal funding, for small municipal airports. There just doesn't seem to be a lot of support for other than ACAP funding. But as Councillor Behan's motion specifies, we have more than passenger service out of our airport. That's critical for our district. So there are a number of municipalities throughout the province that are pursuing putting some pressure on the government, various levels of government, to create a fund for these small municipal airports. So thank you for putting that forward, and I hope we get some traction.
Thank you for your comments, Councilor Bernetta. Further questions or comments? I'll just make one comment. At the presentation that I'm going to be doing with the Minister of Finance next week, this is my second topic. Again, thanks to Councilor Behan for his advocacy and work on this. Calling the question then, all in favor? Carried? Opposed? There's a notice to reconsider. The reconsideration will be done at the next council meeting. We don't do anything at the same meeting as the presentation. So that will happen at the next meeting. And then that brings us to item number 15, which is the closed session. So I'll put a resolution on the floor. Second. Yeah, good. I don't think I have a resolution. So we can't find the typed one, so I'm just going to do an oral one, which says that council will now proceed in camera. Well, I just found it. Council will now meet in camera in order to address a matter pertaining to the number one, Fort Frances Integrity Commissioner 2025 annual report. This comes under 239-2E litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or the local board, and two, Kirchner versus the Town of Fort Frances update. This follows under 239-2E. Again, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the administration board, the municipality or local board. Can I get a mover and seconder on that, please? Councillor Mackey, Councillor Behan. Any discussion? Calling the question, all in favor? That's carried, so we're going into camera 6:05. For those of you at home, council will now meet in closed session. Once we have met in closed session, we'll return to open session and report. Okay. We met in closed session and dealt with 3 items, and coming out of the closed session, we have 3 resolutions. Dealing with the first item, the recommendation is the council accept report AR-26-0987 titled Fort Frances Integrity Commission 2025 Annual Report, bracket closed, as information. Can I get a mover and seconder, please? Councillor Firth, Councillor Bernetta. Calling the question, all in favor? Again, the second item deals with a report entitled Kitchener versus the Town of Fort Frances. The recommendation reads that council accept report AR-26-0985 titled Kirchner versus the Town of Fort Frances update for informational purposes only. Can I get a mover and seconder on that? Councillor Behan, Councillor Mackey. Calling the question, all in favor? It's carried, no one was opposed. And then the last one deals with the closed meeting minutes of December 8th. The recommendation reads that the closed meeting minutes of December 8th, 2025 be accepted as presented. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Firth, Councillor Morrison. Calling the question, all in favor? Carried. No one was opposed. Brings us to our confirmatory bylaw. Recommendation reads that bylaw 04-26, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council of the corporation of the Town of Fort Frances, be introduced, read, and finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the corporate seal, and become law forthwith. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Bernetta, Councillor Firth. Any discussion? All in favor? It's carried. See anyone opposed? And finally, that having reached the hour of 6:18, this meeting of the Town of Fort Frances be now closed. Councillor Mackey. I'm afraid Councillor Behan seconded. Councillor Mackey got the motion. Waiting for the earth to shake. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you, Council. Pardon me? What? I didn't hear anything.
Just